Ah, the minivan. The way the GM and Toyota and Honda engineers got away from station wagons. Now, for all of you that don't know this, minivans are just a glamorized station wagon. Rebranded, same as the SUV, which is essentially a new name for an old thing, which is a station wagon. It's a big box you haul your family around in and all your stuff. They're pretty popular. They sell millions of them a year. And this one's in for an alignment. It was actually at another shop for some recommendations, including brakes and tires. The tires are a year and a half old. The rear tires had a little bit of excessive toe wear. Boy, that sun glare is rough. And this car was aligned by me a year and a half ago, and the front's still in pretty good shape. That's actually not horrible, but it can be remedied. The problem is in the back, this rear wheel's pointing out pretty bad, and it's got some negative camber. So more than likely this thing hit a pothole in a rough way, or maybe it got bumped in the rear. But most shops, and even the program, when you say illustrate adjustments down here, the computer, our Hunter alignment computer, will give us the information we need to see. Next illustration. The manufacturer does not specify rear camber and toe adjustments. Well, just because there are no manufacturer specified toe adjustments or camber adjustments doesn't mean that they're not fixable. So this Toyota Sienna 2015 has a solid rear axle. So even though this is an all-wheel drive vehicle, you can see this has a beam type axle. That is one piece. They do this because it's durable and it works. And they probably already had them designed, and they just changed the engineering to facilitate the all-wheel drive with that same rear axle. Now the trick here is it's not adjustable, but it actually is adjustable, and a lot of people don't know it's adjustable, so people get sold a whole new rear axle because people don't know about, you know, the way we used to do this stuff. So I'm going to do a completely legitimate repair to this axle. If you want to see what I do, stick around. Maybe we'll learn something today. Or maybe Ohio Rust is going to fight me a battle that I don't want to get into. But we're not going to talk about that before we get started. The all-wheel drive aspect of this does add a little bit more work to this, but it can be done. So we have, that's a problem. Oh no, it needs an axle. Well, it doesn't need an axle. There's these things called easy shims. They come in different colors. Blue, gray, yellow, probably others. I don't know. But I'm going to use a gray one. These are an item from SPC, one of my favorite little companies that I get all sorts of good pieces of parts to make remedies to things like this. Saves the customer a bunch of time and money. So you can see we're 2 degrees negative on our camber, so we want to take a full degree out of that to match it up to this side. And we're roughly 0.2, 0.19 towed out. So we want to take 0.19 tenths of a degree out of our toe, bringing it back square. And we want to reduce our camber a degree. So the directions in here camber change, 1 degree positive. Toe degree, 0.19 positive. We don't have a match on the gray, but we do have 0.22. I'd rather go more. 1 degree positive, 0.22 positive is a 33 and a 2. So we take our shim and we do a 33 and a 2. So that lines us up, our 33 and our 2. Chrysler, Opel, Audi, Ford, Renault, Ford, Mercury, Nissan, General Motors, Rover. It must not be gray for the Toyota, because it's not in here. Yep, gotta figure out which one it is. Toyota. So you can see SPC has all sorts of tools, adjustment, modifications, upgraded control arms, upgraded ball joints, and basically a complete library of information. And it also, at spc.com, they have their full catalog, their full online catalog. And I buy a lot of parts from these guys. It's a good company, decent parts. This is an old manual. They're out of Longmont, Colorado. And I did look up online the 2014 and up Siennas, and they actually have a full contact shim designed for this vehicle that will allow me to basically put a ½ degree of positive camber into it and get my toe right where it needs to be. And if you look at the factory specs, it actually wants it at about 15.15 toe in the rear, which means I need to take it 0.4 of a degree to tow it in. And then my camber, if I do a ½ degree cambered positive, it will put me into the green. So 2 shims on that side, and they only want you to use up to 2 shims. So you do 1 toe shim, 1 camber shim. And then this side's not bad enough to really change, but if the customer wanted it to be perfect, we would do a 0.1 degree toe in and probably leave the camber there. That way the cambers are pretty close to being even. So that's where we're at. I have to order these shims. I don't have any of these in stock. But that's how you fix stuff. Sometimes there's things out there that manufacturers don't have in their arsenal of things, but it saves this customer from spending thousands of dollars on replacing the rear axle. So when I get those shims in my hands, I will bring this vehicle back in. I will install one of the full contact, well, 2 of the full contact shims on the passenger's rear, so that we don't burn tires up at a faster rate than necessary, because tires are expensive and we want our customers to get the best use out of their investment. So the front end's good. Until those shims come in, I'm at a standstill on this, so I'm going to strip this thing down, take it outside, and move on to my next thing to do. And then we'll get back into this video when I have those shims. Alright, so I started this one a while ago, and I'm just now getting back to it. She needed her car for some other things, so we kind of brought it back in to address her rear wheel shim issue. I'm going to do a quick check on the alignment just to verify I have the correct shims that I'm going to be putting on it. and I'll show you how to shim a rear axle on an all-wheel drive Toyota Sienna. It involves removing the wheel, removing the brakes on the side that you're shimming, or both sides if you're shimming both sides. I'm only going to do the one side because it should get us to where we won't be wearing tires abnormally. Remove the brakes, remove the hub, and then there's a full contact shim that is made by SPC. And they come in multiple different sizes and shim amounts to take up the abnormality that has happened to the rear axle. Oftentimes you hit a pothole and it'll bend it. You bump a curb, it can bend it. The rear suspensions on these are kind of fragile, and we do a lot of these shims. So not a big deal, just take some time. It is additional to the alignment because this is not a factory alignment point. This is something the aftermarket has created to help keep these vehicles in service much longer with ultimately less cost to the customer with, because compared to replacing the axle, this is a lot better way to go. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour to do it, assuming you don't live in Ohio where your car is all rusty. But that's where we're at. You can see this right rear tire is pointed out pretty hard. So we're going to put a 0.2 degree shim in. 0.2 degree shim for toe to tow us in on the rear, and we're going to do a 1/2 degree camber shim to stand us up a little bit and make things better. So let me get the rear wheel off and we will get started with this process. So two 14mm bolts gets your caliper off and out of the way. That guy. And then two 17mm bolts get your caliper bracket out of the way. And you remove your brake rotor. Now we have access to our hub. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts. Looks like they're 17s. And we have a hub nut, which is a 12 point, which complicates things. But I should have something to solve that. So I need to remove my axle nut and my 4 hub bolts. And then we'll have access to do our shim. This will probably just push the axle shaft out. Which is fine. Now we have to figure out how to get that hub out of there without completely destroying it. That's going to be a task because this is Ohio. Let's try a pry bar first. I was afraid it was going to fight me. That figures. So you could use a hub tamer, which requires pulling the rear axle. Shaft, I don't really want to do that. Let's try the slide hammer. Maybe a little quick like. It will also probably be futile. Gravity got away from me. Let's see what we can do. Can we get in between the backing plate? Yes, we can with an air hammer from the back. So we will try that because this is Ohio. That's how you overcome rust, is with hot wrenches and air hammers. painful. Let me find some earplugs. Good Lord. This one's gonna be a fight. Alright. Camber shim, 1/2 degree up. That will lean our wheel out. Toe shim. Two toe. Suppose you could use them either way. That's a thick side. Nope, that would give me more toe out. We want the thick side of the back to toe us in because we were toed out. Two toe. Well, 0.2 toe. Alright, now I am going to run these bolts nuts down, but I want to torque these to specification because these shims are nylon and you can over torque them and over compress them. My surfaces were actually pretty clean, which is nice. I set my socket down and I got too much stuff out of it now. That's where you're hiding. Hiding from me. Alright, let's see if get this thing to bite. Gravity. That's better. Yeah, let's get our torque wrench. Let's lock it down. All right. So our hub nut torque is 66 foot-pounds. So we will take those there evenly. Shut torque on all four. That one pulled a little more, so we'll check torque on all four again. I think we're good. So if this was a drum brake vehicle, you would put the shim in between the backing plate and the axle as well. I'm surprised the directions say to put it between the hub and the backing plate. Insert shim between axle and backing plate. No, okay, I read it wrong. I was thinking the hub. So insert shim between the axle and hub backing plate, which is where I put it, and that makes sense. Because that way the backing plate is shifted with the hub bearing, and that allows the brakes to stay true to the hub surface. So with that, we can put it back together. So, put on a rotor. We still have to put on our axle hub, but that's like a 268 foot-pound torque, so we will do that once it is. This little window needs to be lined up with the recess. So we will do that once we have the wheel back on. Actually, the other wheel's on. We can torque it once we drop that wheel down and lock it out. These were, I'll have to look at what the spec was on those. I think they were 70 foot-pounds. I'm glad I double-checked my torque spec. It's 294 newton meters, but it's 217 foot-pounds. So I'll grab my big torque wrench. Well, not really my big torque wrench, but my bigger torque wrench. $217 foot-pounds. We need to stake that to make sure that it stays. Stake. So now our wheel can go back on. We can recomp this car and double check our alignment and see if we made it better or worse. Hopefully we made it better. Oh, I like it. I like it a lot. So you can see, now we're in the green, and we're in the green. And standing that tire up actually changed that one a little bit because it changed the angle the vehicle sits at. So let me, we're 4/10 off up front. Not sure if I can do, yeah, I can loosen those bolts and probably get a 1/10 or 2 out of those. So we'll see if we can make an improvement to that real quick. And then we'll just have to set our front toe, because the steering wheel is probably going to be off now, because when you take that back wheel and you point it in, it was, the back end of the car was trying to correct itself. So now that we did that, it corrected it this way, so the steering wheel will be off to the left. So we'll have to correct that in the tie rod end lengths. But I'm real happy with that. 2 shims got me in the green on both items. The other one's close to its limit, but it's not enough to wear tires, so we're not going to worry about the other rear. And honestly, that really made it really, really close in the back. So I'll see if I can sneak a 1/10 out of the camber in the passenger's front. Trying to show how us old guys do some of this stuff, because I've been doing this a long time, and I like saving people money. I don't like selling axles because they're out a little bit. I like fixing it so that the customer can get another, hopefully, 100,000 miles out of this car, or more. It is a Toyota after all. Alright, I don't know if I can film this and do this at the same time, but we'll give it a shot. Turn up the gun. Stinks. That's not going to work. Hang on a second. Alright, let's try this again. Now you can see I went to 1.2, so I'm going to take the weight off. I'm going to take the weight off of the tire and push out on it and see if I can gain a tenth or two. Basically, we're just using the slack for the bolt holes to open ourselves up a little bit. Alright, let's see if we made it better. Anytime you have the wheels off the ground, you have to balance your suspension. It's actually best to roll it back and bring it back forth. But I just gained a half a degree by loosening the bolts and tightening them back up. That's pretty awesome. So you can see my camber now, just from loosening the bolts and applying force in a different direction, even them up within a tenth. Now that's about as optimal as you're going to get on a vehicle that's running around on the street. Now you can see it made a huge change in my toe over here, because as that went out, it changed my angle of the toe. My back end still looks great. So let's go ahead and center our steering wheel, and we will set our front toe, and this one will be done. This one's a pretty in-depth alignment, honestly. We are doing a lot of fixing on this one, but it's better than burning the tires off the thing, because tires are expensive. They're not getting any cheaper. So I'm going to center my wheel, set my toe, and then I'll actually recomp the car and get my final reading. Because I had the wheels up and down and moving all that stuff around, I want to make sure that I have a good reading on my computer and make sure all my heads are reading accurately. If I bump a head, you know, I'm hammering on that strut with that could shake the head and make it go to a different location, so it could give me a false reading. You know, should you have to do that? No, but if you want your alignment to leave and be correct, you should double check your work. I do that on the race cars a lot. Like I comp the heads on the race cars. I'm doing 3, 4, sometimes 5, 6 times before I'm done with them. But those guys are paying me by the hour to work on their car, so I don't mind spending another 5 minutes to verify repeatable results. So, let me wash my hands because I'm filthy. I'll be right back. Alright, so when I dial my tie rod end jam nuts in, I back them off and I put a little, actually this is ATF or Marvel Mystery Oil, I don't know what's in this bottle right now, but it's one of those two. I use that in different bottles that I have repurposed, and I drip a little of this on the tie rod end on both sides of the jam nut so that the tie rod end is nice and lubricated. So the next time I do an alignment on this, that component isn't seized from rust and corrosion. It's not necessary, but it's the right thing to do. Although in some states you don't have to worry about salt, so it's not as big of a deal. But the next guy who works on this will thank me for doing that. That's pretty good. I won't have any tire wear. I'm towed in within my specification that I need to be. My left toe's within limits, but it's close to the outer range. But between the two, they're balanced nicely. My camber is dead on. My toe's good. My rear toe's good. So we're going to ship it. That's it for this one. So I will lock down my tie rod ends, and then I'll drop it down. I'll roll it back, do another comp. One of the nice things about the Hunter Hawkeye Elite alignment system is that recomping, every time you need to recomp, you're literally just rolling it back, rolling it forward, and it's simple. It takes like maybe 3 minutes to set a car up and have it comped, which is one of the reasons I chose this equipment, is because it's super quick to do your setups. And when you have a situation like this where I'm going to be taking wheels off and fixing things, putting wheels back on, recomping, it's not a big process. So, you know, the older machines, you had to like jack them up and rotate the wheels, or you had a three-point compensation process. And this new system is by far the nicest alignment equipment that I've ever used. But I started with a Hunter strings machine back in the day. It had strings that I had to string out, and it wouldn't have been able to do some of the cambered alignments like I do now. It wouldn't be capable of understanding what was going on with 9 degrees of negative camber like some of these stanced vehicles have. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks for watching. Click like, subscribe, leave us a comment below. You guys have a safe day out there. Moving on to the next car. Have a great one.